Good evening, good evening, good evening. It is Monique Denton, your host of Sis Table Talk and founder of Embrace Your Cake and Sisters Inspire Sisters Network. Listen, we have a great show tonight. We are talking about 50 phenomenal women. We have one of our phenomenal Sis Network members here as our guest tonight, Miss Luciana Griffith. Also part of the 50 Phenomenal Women anthology and book. And we're going to jump right into what makes you a phenomenal woman. We're going to talk about really stepping into who you are, overcoming adversities, overcoming obstacles, and get into a place where you receive it, you embrace it, you feel it, you embody it, you walk the walk, you talk the talk. This 50 Phenomenal Women project is really highlighting some, phenomenal, amazing, outstanding women in our communities. And we're not just talking about locally and nationally, we're talking about around the globe. So Miss Luciana, listen, Miss Phenomenal Woman, phenomenally. I would like you, if you could just introduce yourself. First of all, thank you so much for joining the project. I'm honored to have you to be with us. You are an amazing person doing some amazing things. You could just tell us a little bit about yourself, why you joined the project, and what makes you a phenomenal woman.
Well, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be among these amazing women, these amazing, phenomenal women. I'm just honored to be in your presence, Monique, because the things I've been hearing, I'm just like, yeah, I'm in the right place. Just to speed up, my name is Luciana Griffith, as some of you that are watching already know. I was born in Queens. I was raised in Harlem. I moved back to Queens, and that's where I continued. I'm a married mother of two phenomenal children. They're on their way to being beyond phenomenal. I live in Elmont, and I was a social worker for 24 years. I have been in about 5 or 6 aspects of it, from preventive child care all the way up to individuals that had traumatic brain injuries. So I've been a elder abuse counselor. I work with women who were victims of domestic violence. I also worked for a mental health and substance abuse insurance company, helping people get to the right levels of care that they needed, whether they needed a higher level of care or whether it was just something simple as counseling. So my journey with the 50 Phenomenal Women and the Sis Network actually started maybe about 3 months ago, when I was invited to listen to one of my sorors, Miss Keisha Jones, who is an amazing woman. I don't know if there's another word beyond phenomenal that can describe her, but she's awesome. And she's also my line sister. So as I listened to her story and the other women's story, I began to think about my journey and the things that I've encountered in my life. And I said, you know what? I think I got a little story to tell that might bless somebody or encourage someone. You know what I mean? I just figured, hey, I think I got a little something that might, bless God's people, if you will, because I think we're all God's children. And,
Right.
You never know what someone is going through that might help you get through, or that what you're going through might help them get through. So I spoke to her about it first, because I said I didn't want to step on her toes or anything. She was like, girl, why are you asking me that? You better call her. So I said, no worries. And I think within that same week, I reached out, and you and I had a conversation, and here I am.
Yes. And that conversation, so the calls are usually like 30-minute calls. I think we were on for about an hour, and finally it was like, you know what? Okay, this can go on and on and on. So we got off the call, but I was so, when you reached out and when we spoke, and when you took me through your journey of becoming a phenomenal woman, first of all, hats off to you for the industry that you're in and doing all that you do for the people that you do. I know that it's not an easy field. And when you talk about, that's one of the things that resonated with me, especially talking about elder care and being being that an advocate and also helping and all of the things that you've done. But Tell us, I know your phenomenal woman journey, but if you can just tell the audience a little bit about, um, what got you here, what got you to this place, and why you feel that you are a phenomenal woman.
So, in 2004, I was 27 years old. I had been married for 1 year. I just purchased my home. And one night I was, going through my evening routine and I felt a lump in my breast. And I just continued because in my mind, I'm thinking this is just normal, when we go through our monthly menstrual cycles. And sometimes we get changes in our breast and, how our bodies just function. So when I was done, I came into the room and I showed my husband, and he said immediately, he touched it and he said, no, you go to the doctor tomorrow. I said, well, I just can't go to the doctor. I got to make an appointment. He said, look, whatever you got to tell yourself, whatever you got to do it. So I went and made the appointment. I saw my regular primary care physician. He had been the physician for my entire family for God knows how long. So he knows my family medical history. So when he examined it, he said it's probably nothing, but just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go and refer you to a surgeon. So he referred me to the surgeon, and maybe about a week or so later, I made the appointment immediately, and about a few weeks later, I had the appointment. I went to see him, and he said, "Well, Mrs. Griffith, let me just say this. Usually, when we find lumps or when we find abnormalities in a woman's breast, it's soft. We can tell that it's a cyst, and we just excise it, and you're good to go." He says, "But yours is hard." And in the process of him saying that, he knocked on the desk on his desk to, I guess, emphasize how hard it was for him to get the needle through to do the biopsy on the mass. So I waited a few weeks and he finally reached back out to me. He called me at work, but I wasn't there to tell me what he had to say. So he calls me, he says, "Miss Griffith, I'm just going to be 100% forward with you. I don't have any good news. The test came back positive with malignant cells, which is consistent with breast cancer." So here I am,
Wow.
27 years old, just purchased my home, and my whole world comes crashing down even harder. And what made it even worse was the year prior, literally 3 months after we got married, my husband went into complete renal failure. So from that time on, from the time that we found out that he was in renal failure, he immediately had to go on dialysis. So we're dealing with him being on dialysis, going to dialysis at the time, 3 days a week for 3.5 hours a day. The changes that he was going through in his body. The both of us are still working, still trying to maintain. We have moved from Brooklyn to Long Island. So it was a change in even the atmosphere, the people that we were living around,
Yes.
you know, um,
Yes.
you know, everything changed. So
Right.
we had to adjust. We knew what we wanted to do, but we even had to make adjustments because there was that eerie quietness when we're used to hearing sirens all night long. So, we had a lot of adjustments. So, moving forward, the doctor said, "Listen, I need you to come in immediately so that we can start the process of, getting attacking this cancer."
Mhm.
So I had to tell my husband. He wasn't home at the time. I think that probably was one of the hardest things I ever had to do, was share that with him, considering what we were already dealing with. And this is why it's important when you connect with someone, they have to fear and love God just as much as you do, because you don't know what their response is going to be, because that's how love does. Love will make you respond some ways that you're not expecting, and it's not a bad thing. But when you love somebody so intently and you hear something bad or a bad news about them, you don't
Mhm.
know what you're going to do. You don't know if you're going to cry, scream, punch something. You don't know. But what I'm grateful for is that he did show his emotion, and then immediately after that, we both began to pray. We went up in a worship and we just asked the Lord for direction because we didn't know what to do. So the first thing, so after that, we done our research on exactly what steps we would need to follow. Now, that was just for our basic knowledge. But of course, when the doctors tell you, how you should proceed, because it was I was in stage 2. So you have to proceed differently. So the doctor said, listen, you're young, so we need to attack this immediately. So they used the most potent medication that was on the market at the time. So the first surgery I had was the lumpectomy. And then shortly after that, I had what I call it a lymphectomy, but it's a longer name that I'm not even going to try to pronounce. But it's
Okay.
when they just remove the lymph nodes they removed 12 auxiliary lymph nodes from under my arm, just to make sure that the cancer hadn't spread. So when they did, they realized that the cancer hadn't spread, which was really good. So my body had to have time to heal. So he said, okay, now we need to start the chemotherapy. Now, usually the chemotherapy is administered through the veins and through your hand. But the doctor, he kept pulling the top of my skin. He said, Miss Griffith, this is going to be difficult because your veins are very small. So I'm like, okay, so what are we going to do about that? He says, well, the only thing we can do is we have to put a port in your chest where they would have to administer the chemotherapy from there. So I'm like, so what you telling me you got to put like in my chest? He's like, yes, and you have to be very careful because any jarring of your body, anybody hitting you in your chest could rupture everything because these are attached to veins in your heart. And I'm like, sir, I mean, I'm sitting there trying to compute everything because this is a first. It's scary, You want to have faith, but at the same time, that human side of you is like, I have to live with this for God knows how long, and then God forbid that I relapse and I have to go through this all over again. So they did the surgery. So I had 3 surgeries within 60 days. They didn't give my body a chance to heal and my body a chance to recover. So I had to go through these things because they wanted to treat it, as they said, prophylactically, just to make sure that they attacked this cancer and that it wouldn't, come back.
I have to stop you for 1 minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
want to make sure, first of all, we have some comments. Hello, Tamisha, another one of our Sis Network members. Thank you so much for joining in. I have hello, Queens, great evening. Hello, ladies. So our audience is here, but there's a couple of things that you said, which is why I have to stop you in terms of being a phenomenal woman. And I just want to make sure that everyone heard it. First of all, you were a homeowner at 27. Okay, let's just talk. Let's just put that out there. Homeowner at 27, and now things are different, a little different, where it's a little easier. But at that time, 27, I mean, that's a major accomplishment. The fact that was one of the first goals of you and your husband to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. And the other thing, being familiar, one, with dialysis and what that's about, and then hearing about your story. So I know that with dialysis, you also have to have a port put in order to get those treatments. And I know how difficult it is. And also any type of infection, how careful you have to be. So not only did you and your husband relocate, you're in a new town, new environment, new community, dealing with some things with your husband, and then dealing with this. I don't even, there are people that wouldn't even be here today to discuss this. And I don't even want to give away the story. So I'm just going to, so I'm just going to leave that alone. But I need to know at that time, how did you, what type of faith do you have to have in order to even get through that?
Well, you know what happens? I had one of my supervisors, she asked me one time, she said, can I ask you a question? I said, sure. She said, did you get religious as a result of what you went through, or were you always like this? And I said, well, let me explain something to you. First of all, religion is something that you do as a routine. Nothing that I do in my worship or my love for God is a routine. because I have that's just my relationship with him. So
Mhm.
it is just a part of who I am. I am a worshiper. I am a praiser. I am someone that has faith. And I've seen God move in so many other aspects of my life in the past, even as it relates to my family. So my faith level, me just believing that I knew God was going to bring me through this one way or the other, just carried me through. I often think about the three Hebrew boys. Now, they defied what the decree and what the law was at that time. It said nobody is to worship anybody except, I believe it was Baal. I don't want to misquote, and then everybody, no, that's wrong. But they weren't supposed to worship anyone. And then there was a certain time of the day when they had to worship this particular God. And as a result of them disobeying what they said, they were thrown in the fire. However, when you read through the story, not only were they in the fire, there were four in there. When they went back, there was another person in there, and they said that that was the Son of God. So for me to go through what I went through, and they were thrown in fire, and they said turn it up 7 times hotter than it normally is. And
Mhm.
for them to go through that and come out without a hair burned on their body and them not being
Wow.
singed, and then they turned the way that the entire country began to worship. For me, now again, that's Bible. But for
Yeah.
me, I had nothing else to rely on but that same God. And I've
Mhm.
seen him move in my life, prior to this. So I
I'm
had no choice.
you just dropped the mic. I just got to drop a
I have I have
yes.
no choice but to worship and serve a God like that, and to have faith and I don't want to say in someone, but yeah, in someone, because he is a someone. Yes. In my God. And I mean, I'll take it another way. I don't want to do that. But I had no choice but to believe God. And then the faith that was around me. I mean, between my mother-in-law, God rest her soul, my grandmother, God rest her soul, my church members at the time. I could not, even if I wanted to doubt God, I couldn't. Now let me just be clear. There were times when I did worry because it felt, it got a little dim. Let's just be clear. We are human. And the Bible says that in this flesh, we are going to have some trouble. But because we know where our hope lies, that just changes the game for everything. So, it did get a little dim, but the foundation of where I knew I needed to be to get through this,
Mhm.
I was good. I was good with that.
Okay, so first of all, hi Vandella, thank you for joining us. I have hand claps in the chat. So this, and we didn't even this is the beginning, okay? And this is why I love, love, love what I do, because if you are empowered by this story, by Luciana, and we're just getting started. This isn't even the full story. And you're not going to get the full story during this broadcast, but you're going to get enough information that is going to empower you and say to you, you know what? I need to know more about Luciana. When that book comes out, I need to pick up that book and read the chapter. But so you talked about, we left off with the port. You had
Yes.
the port put in. It was 3
Mhm.
surgeries, you said, within a 60-day period.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. 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 And that was a lot, on my body. It was a lot mentally. It was a lot watching my husband go through that with me, and then me having to deal with what he was going through. So, I had the first chemotherapy, and my mother-in-law, I just have to, and y'all forgive me if I get a little emotional, because she was very, very, very intricate, and she was quintessential to my recovery. I had to go to chemotherapy once a week for 8 weeks. And she came over every day to drive because I couldn't drive. They didn't, I mean, I wasn't necessarily driving at the time, but they don't want you to drive because it causes you to be very sleepy. And every appointment that I had, she was there front and center. She took me. We went. I was there for maybe about an hour and a half. She would make sure I was good. You know, she would stay with me until my husband came home. And then
Wow.
when he came home, she would leave. So it was like they were changing the guards. And, you know, thank God that the way our schedule was set up, it wasn't on the days where he had dialysis. So
Mhm.
when he would come home and he wouldn't be feeling so great, I would, you know, take care of him. And then when I would go to my treatment, she would be home with me, make sure I was good. And he would come home from work and, you know, he would just, you know, like I said, they would change the guard and he would pick up the rear from there. So she was very, 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 she was there with me the whole time. So I went through that for 8 weeks, and the nausea, the losing of the hair. And, you know, my mom, she's amazing because maybe the first two treatments I had, I remember being in the bathroom and I said, oh, I'm going to take my braids out and wash my hair and rebraid it. Now, this is the first time I had touched my hair since I started the treatment. And as I began to take the braids out, my hair began to come out in chunks, like literally in my hand. And the reality, you know, you going through everything else, but the reality of what I was dealing with really set in at that point because I saw my hair in my hands. My hair began to literally fall out all over. And, you know, I always said, God, I said, I know I'm God's favorite because of all the hair that I lost, I kept
Mhm.
my eyebrows. So I was like, I'm going to be all right. I lost hair everywhere, but God said, not the brows, baby girl, not the brows.
Well, I just
So,
want to point out too that the support is here for you. I know that you can't see the comments on your end, but Nisha says phenomenal, so strong. May God continue to bless you and your family and keep that strength. Your husband is on here. He says, good
oh,
evening. Go ahead, babe. We love you. Hubby and kids are here in support with a heart and a prayer hand. So, and that strength to the type of relationship that you two have, and that's a whole nother story. Okay, there's a
right.
story. That's a whole nother story. So the support is here. So you seeing the hair come out, and then you know what, and just talking about your mother-in-law and the strength, and you know sometimes we say it takes a village, and it takes a village, and to have that type of support for her to be there, and like
Mm,
you said, the change of the guards, and she's like, you know what, I got you. What do we
yeah,
need to do? I,
yeah.
you know,
She was
another.
she was the best, you know. And I tell everybody, people always ask. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you know, people always say, "How you get along with your mother-in-law? Like, what is that?" I'm like, see, y'all don't even understand. She minded her business and I minded my business. When me and hubby was going through it, she was like, get out of my house. Y'all go pray. Nope, I'm not having that. Nope, no, get out. Y'all go pray. You
Yeah.
know, and she was so good in that. And I mean, even aside from that, she was she was such an encouragement. Like nothing, it was like I see again, that's a whole other chapter that I could write about her. But you
Right.
know, just to see that she was so encouraging. And you know, when we were telling everyone, when we were mentioning to our family, she
Mhm.
came over. I mean, it was like she literally flew from Brooklyn to Long Island, and she came and she sat on the step in my house, and she was like, "Please, y'all gonna be all right. I got y'all." And I'm like, "Ma'am, did you hear what I just said to you? Like, I just said that I got cancer. Like, I don't know how this translated to you, but
Mhm.
where's all I need what you got right now?" And all it was faith, because even in her life, you know, she had encountered some things, and the stories and the way God brought her through. I'm like, I serve that same God, so I'm good,
Yeah.
you know.
Wow. So we have, okay, I'm such an inspirational woman and a great mom. And that is from Shaba. I want to say SHABHA. So your support is here. We are, I mean, this is good. And we're already towards the end of the show, but we're going to keep
Oh
going.
my gosh.
I need the viewers, I need the audience to really hear and to understand. And when you talk about favor and you talk about faith,
Yes.
but if you can just, so you started the treatments, you were in going through chemotherapy, and then what were the
So
next things?
okay, so once I finished the chemotherapy, I had then I had 12 weeks of radiation. So I had gone to radiation every day. My mother-in-law was there. Sometimes between her and my husband, since it was really early in the morning, my husband would take me because he had an early shift. So he would go and drop me off early in the morning, and he would stay with me because it would be, I would say, maybe about 30 minutes. So it was enough time for him to go to work, I'm sorry, take me, bring me back home, and then head off to work. So I would be in the house, doing what I needed to do. And the radiation, the only thing it really did, well, not the only thing, but it did several things. So in radiation, it also, between the radiation and the chemotherapy, it damages your reproductive system. And thanks be to God, I was, through the whole time, I was still able to go through my menstrual cycle. It did change a little bit in its texture, if you will, without getting too graphic. And one day I had gone and I did not see my monthly menstrual cycle. So I mentioned it to the nurse, and she says, "Well, have you been um, intimate?" And I said, "Well, I can't answer that right now, but since you're a nurse, sure I have." So
Mhm.
she says, "Well, I just want you to know that when you are intimate with your husband, you do need to wear some type of prophylactic." And I'm like, "Okay, what do you mean by that?" She's like, "You know what I mean." So I had to, it's when she explained to me why, she said, because his immune system is very low,
Mhm.
and with the medicine that's in your system, because you still have the chemotherapy, the chemo is still in your system working because it's that strong. If his body absorbs it, you can kill him. And I'm
Oh,
just like, you got to be kidding me. So we had to change, the way we enjoy each other. And
right.
it was difficult because I'm a married woman. Like, who does that when they're married? So
Mhm.
moving on, I was nervous because I said, I hope that I'm not, pregnant or anything. So she said, "Oh, if you are, these are the things that can happen. Either you would have to terminate your pregnancy, or you would have to run the risk of giving birth to a child that has deformities." So I was like, "Well, I don't really want to do either. So we
Right.
just going to believe God that maybe this is just a side effect of what's going on." So thanks be to God, it was just a side effect. I was fine. I didn't have to go through that, thank God. And we moved forward. So um, at that point, I was in complete remission. I was going back for my regular checkups. Everything was moving forward. I had gone back to work.
Mhm.
And in the meantime, my husband was still going through what he was going through. And we, was still doing our everyday normal thing. So one Sunday morning, we were getting ready for church, and we get a phone call from Mount Sinai Hospital. This is moving forward. I'm already in the clear. I'm good. My hair's growing back, so everything is good.
Okay.
And one morning we're getting ready for church, and we get a call from Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai tells us that they have a kidney for my husband.
Wow.
We thought, and we listened, and we asked questions, and we called. We have an aunt who is a nurse. We was like, "Auntie, they're telling us XYZ. How do we move?" She was like, "Go for it. Get in the car, get dressed, go now." We was like, "Say less, we out."
Wow.
So we went, and my husband got the transplant. And at that point, we were like, "Okay, so we're good now. It's time for us to make a family." So now I go back to my doctor. He says, "Well, with everything that you've been through, we really need to check to see exactly if you're even able to conceive." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, doc. We can we just." So he said, "Well, I have to run a few tests. I just can't have you, guys just going and trying, and then there's an issue."
Mhm.
So he ran a few tests, and he says, "Well, we need to make sure that your hormone levels are high enough for you to even start the process." So at the time, he said, "Well, give me 30 days. It's low at this point. Give me 30 days, and we'll see what happens." So I went, and I did the he monitored me for 30 days. And at the time they were low. So when I went back to the doctor, he said, "Listen, I don't know what you did or what's going on, but your hormone levels are really, really high. And I'm like, okay, so what are you telling me? So at that point, I honestly felt that I might have been carrying my son and didn't even realize it. Because a few weeks later, I took a pregnancy test, and sure enough, the test came back positive that I was pregnant with my baby boy, my 13-year-old son. That's my baby. You know, I love my daughter as well. I hope she's listening. Mommy loves you just as much. But your brother came first. So, and with everything that had transpired, there's a whole lot of little in-betweens in there, but we don't have time to share all of that. But it just goes to show that when you hold on to, as the song says, God's unchanging hand, you cannot fail. You cannot fail. And there's nothing that he can do. The Bible says, is there anything too hard for him? And the answer is no, there is nothing too hard for him. And even if he doesn't do it the way we want to do it, he's still God. He's still worthy to be praised, because there's so many other things in your life where his hand has proved itself. So even if he doesn't do what you want him to do when you want him to do it, trust me, he's going to do something else that's going to make you forget about that thing. And he can do exceedingly abundantly above all that we can ask or think. I hope I'm not rambling, but I just need you to understand how serious this is and how important it is to really, really, really believe God, even at the darkest times in your life. Because I'm going to tell you, it did get dark, between the changes that I was going through and the changes that my husband was going through. There was a time, I would be vomiting in one bathroom and he's vomiting in the other bathroom. We like, babe, you okay? Yeah, I'm all right. You okay? Not to be, graphic, but that's just how it was. And it was really difficult. And we were both in ministry at the time. He was our music pastor and I was on the praise team. So while he's going through what he's going through, he's still got to minister. He's still got to be an encouragement to the people. I've still got to minister. Most of the time I was actually home for a long stretch. But, me having to watch him struggle through Sunday mornings when he really wasn't feeling well, and then we have to come home with that and, just deal with the goings on of just ministry itself. So it's like, how to balance all of that? And there's only one way to do it, because you can't do it in your own strength. As much as you think you are, as strong as you think you are, you cannot do it in your own strength, and I often tell people that God knows what you're going to go through. So he gives you the strength to deal with it. Because you know what they say, if it doesn't kill you, it's only going to make you stronger. So God already put in you what you need to go through and endure that thing. And you come out as pure gold. Like I said, I could go, we could be on here till next Thursday. But
so
we ain't got that kind of time today.
I want to say, first of all, not only are you a phenomenal woman, and I'm going to say behind every phenomenal woman, there is a phenomenal man. Okay. And your husband has the support that you have received. And just there's just so many things. And I think about it and I still am trying to wrap my head around how were both of you able to go through what you were going through and then was still able to serve, right? Unselfishly. How many people you're in a situation and you just, what, like, I can't do it, but then to still keep that responsibility to support one another and your husband to still serve in the ministry. And then all of the things that you did. And then they said, okay, this might do something to your reproductive system. And you have 2 beautiful children, and look where you are today. And what I really get from your story, and what's really blessed me is the importance of having faith and the importance of believing. And I hope that the audience has received that as well. We do have another comment. Our future depends on our faith. I absolutely believe that. You have proved that.
Amen.
I don't, if I was you, okay, and the more we get to know each other, I'm like, she's just so amazing. You are just so amazing. But the journey that you've been through and where you are now, I'm going to tell you something. You wouldn't be able to tell me anything. You know that TikTok, be prepared to be sick of me? You have been through.
I love that. Be prepared to be sick of
Yes,
me.
they need to be prepared because
Oh my
of
God.
your journey. I mean, you are in a position where you, first of all, and where you are now, sharing, and you're sharing, and I can't even imagine being in a situation where you shared at the time and you don't want people to look at you or feel sorry, for you
Right.
or take pity on you. So even to share the story, that's strength within itself. So I just want to thank you for that. If you have two tips, let's just say two tips that you would like to leave our viewers, and specifically women that might be going through anything, whether it be a health condition, whether it be, it could be physical health, it could be mental health, it could be depression, going through something. What is it that you would say to them? And we have amen. And thanks for sharing, cuz love you so much. And that's for Marcus. Let me tell you, the support is here. So, what
Oh,
are two tips that you would leave to women to help them get themselves through some real tough stuff?
wow. Well, the first thing I would say, as it relates to your physical, stay on your doctor's appointments. Make sure your insurance and everything you need is in place, please, because the our climate is changing, and I'm gonna leave that like it is. That's air quotes. Our climate is changing, and there are a lot of things that may not, we may not be made aware of. So you gotta listen to your body. If you feeling tired, sit down. Don't don't try to overdo it. That was one of
Yes.
my things. I'm like, it got to be done, because if you know how we do, if you want it done right, we got to do it, because ain't nobody gonna do it if we don't do it.
Right.
Forget all that. Rest. Go to the doctor. I know they say that when you turn 40 is when you start, going to the doctor to make sure that everything is all right, your prostate and, colonoscopy. Well, sorry, we don't do prostates, colonoscopies and, breast exams. As soon as you realize that you have your two little girls walking around with you every day, make sure you get an exam. Do your own home exams. Mental health. Find your happy place. If your happy place is at the gym, if your happy place is, I don't want to say in the mall, because sometimes y'all know how we could do, women.
I
If your
know.
happy place, if your happy place is in a spa, if your happy place is in your living room with a book, quiet with a cup of tea, get it
Yeah.
done. You have to take care of your mental, because you are going to be no good to anyone if you are not good to yourself.
Amen.
I have 5 million more tips, but those two right
Amen.
now are the most important. Take care of your health, and definitely take care of your mental. Find your happy space and stay in it.
Thank you so much. So we know we are just, I'm excited about your future. I'm excited about 2023 because I'm putting it in the atmosphere. I don't know what it is that you're doing next, but I know something big is coming. Okay.
Oh,
I know something big is coming. So I'm just going to say it's something big that will be launching in 2023. I feel that something big is coming, but I just want to thank you for sharing. I want to thank you for your transparency. I
sure.
just want to thank you for pouring into not just the audience, but pouring into me. You are again absent. And this is why, you are absolutely phenomenal. And if you received anything, the audience, from the stories, and if you received anything from the two tips, your health is important to you. Take care of yourself. If you feel a lump, don't procrastinate. You didn't procrastinate.
No,
You didn't
ma'am.
procrastinate.
My husband wouldn't let me.
Don't procrastinate. And for those that are on here, the spouses, show the support. That makes a huge difference in
Absolutely.
being
Yes.
able to make it through some of the difficulties that we go through. So, again, I want to thank you so much. This is just the beginning. We have part two. We're going to have a part three. We are going to speak to more of the phenomenal women. Women, if you are interested, please visit Sisters Inspire Sisters. Again, this was the Mrs. Luciana Griffith, member of the Sisters Inspire Sisters Network, also one of our fabulous 50 phenomenal women, on her way to becoming a best-selling author and speaker.
Wow.
Miss Luciana, thank you so much. It was great speaking with you. Everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, share. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe, and we'll see you again next Thursday. Bye-bye.